Welcome to the Pinning Combination Podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher, joined by the incomparable Dick Briggs, ready to take on the 2024-2025 season. Briggsy, excited for another go-around, another trip around the sun that's led us back to the wrestling season.
Absolutely, and it's crazy that it's already started. I forgot how long, and we're going to find out here in a little bit how long the college season is. Wrestling hasn't even started here in Iowa for the high school practice. I don't think yet. The girls have, but not the boys. So,
right. It just seems to expand a little bit more. Iowa started their dual season earlier than ever. We'll touch on that a little bit. Iowa State's already hit the mat. UNI starting this weekend. And speaking of UNI and wrestling and the D3 season that we always, a big part of our Pinning Combination podcast. We love all divisions, all levels of wrestling here, but D3 is something really close to our heart. And somebody that has made a huge impact on the D3 scene. Join us for our first Pinning Combination podcast interview. Dave Malecek from the University of Wisconsin La Crosse. Dave, thanks for joining us this morning. How's it going up there? As Briggsy calls it, God's country.
It is God's country, right? You guys, KJ and Briggsy, it is, man. No, it's going really well. Beautiful weather out today, and guys are already in for a morning workout. So we got a big duel coming up tomorrow against TCNJ here at home, and kind of unique event. We invited Stevens Institute Technology. Anthony Bonaventure is a good friend of mine and owed me a favor because we went out to New York last year and wrestled. So they're coming in, and then we brought Lorison as well. So you got 4 ranked teams in the top 12, I think it is, all wrestling. We're wrestling TCNJ on mat 1, and mat 2 is Stevens versus Laura. So you're going to see some amazing wrestlers. I can't remember how many ranked guys there are, but it's going to be a big night tomorrow night.
Yeah, and the Eagles coming in ranked third. I know your expectations are always high, but I'm assuming you guys are looking for some big things to accomplish this season.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things, KJ and Briggsy, that every year we come into it just trying to see how good we can make these guys. And we really take great pride in developing guys. We're not bringing in bunch of transfers. We don't bring in a ton of like high blue chip and high level recruits. I mean, we try, obviously, and we get, some really good guys, but we just take such great pride in building relationships with these guys and then building and seeing them improve. And a great example is Nolan Hurdle is a 2-time national champ for us, just graduated, now is on the coaching staff with us. And he placed once in the Wisconsin State tournament and went to Fargo, like 2-2, but that kid came in, worked his tail off, and I think he only lost maybe 10 times his whole career in Division III, and he just did an amazing job for us. So that's just a great example for us with our team and that culture we have and expectations we have too, that every year we just want to be in that hunt, be in the thick of it. And I think we gave it a pretty good run last year with our team as we hosted NCAA championships, and we got a good group back, but we're so far from March right now. It's like, how much better can we get today? And we're not into that 1% thing. We're not into like all these others. So we're just like, how good can you be today? And then we'll reevaluate and come right back tomorrow. So some days they make good strides going forward. Other days, we're gonna have sun's gonna come up tomorrow. And we gotta keep getting better. So it's a great group of guys, KJ and Briggsy, and it's just been fun to coach them.
Yeah, and what KJ alluded to this, he and I both have our hearts are in Division III. Division I athletics are they're running amok right now with the NIL and the transfer portal, and so that's when you say you're building these kids and developing these kids. It's something you don't see at that level anymore. People just go out and whatever they need. It's turned into professional sports, and so I'm so happy to hear you say that, and that's why our hearts are in Division III as well.
Yeah.
As far as last year you finished third and you had 5 All-Americans. What's back, Coach?
Yeah, what's back is we have our national qualifier, Sam Lorenz at 141, our national finalist, Tyler Gable at 149, 184 national qualifier, Marcus Orlandoni, 197 All-American, Ben Kopczynski, and then NCAA finalist, Mike Douglas at heavyweight. So we have those guys back. We feel like we got some other guys that are going to step in and have experience. You know, Eddie Symes was fourth at regionals at 174s, and we feel pretty good about, you know, really going up there. We got some younger guys at 25, 33 that we're still trying to figure out, or they're trying to figure out. I don't have to figure it out. They need to figure it out. And, but I think overall, you know, come March, February, March, we'll see the 10 best guys that we got. And that'll come out of that room that develop and kind of keep moving forward and get better. But yeah, I feel really good about this team. And does that equate to wins, Briggsy, and trophies? I don't know, but I just know they come every day and they work their tail off. You know, this morning there was a lot of chatter at 6 o'clock in the morning as we're drinking coffee, getting ready to get to our lift. And they were in good spirits today with a big duel tomorrow. And so that's the part I love about Division III of these guys. You know, there's no scholarships online, to allude to what you were saying, Briggsy, that, you know, I've been here 19 years. I've only had 2 guys leave. One guy just didn't think he could make the lineup, and another guy left because he was a twin and he wanted to go be with his brother. And I helped him get to the other place. So we've been really proud of the guys that have come in here and stayed in here, but only 2 guys have ever transferred out.
Well, and that's impressive. And so for our Iowa listeners, let's go a little history. So, Coach, you're from Osage, wrestled at UNI, and you graduated from UNI. By the way, let me pause it for a second. UNI, geez. Who's your coach?
This guy by the name of Don Briggs. The other Briggsy, as I say. So I had Don Briggs, Joel Greenlee, and I had Tim Krieger in there. I had Chris Bolin in there. I had all kinds of guys that came through. Jim Miller, might know that name, in the great state of Iowa there. I had some amazing coaches while I was at UNI, Briggsy.
You know, so that is a pretty good list right there. I happened to talk to the head coach, Don, last night, and just thought he happened to call, and I mentioned that we were having you on, and I said, "You got any stories?" He goes, "Ask him about the UNI Invitational in the match when you were wrestling. You're kicking the guy's butt, evidently, and something happened to your finger. Yeah, what's the story on that one? Dislocated?"
I'll make that really, really short. First round, the UNI Open, we couldn't get in the Uni Dome, so we had to have it in West Gym. And so we had so many mats in West Gym, then we had so many mats in the wrestling room, and it was packed that year. So, and I got to buy first round. And so my mom and dad sat in the stands for 6 hours. So then it's my turn to wrestle, and I go and I'm beating the kid 14-0, whatever. I go for the last takedown, and I hit my hand on the mat, and my finger comes out. So my finger came out through the bottom of the skin, and like the whole bone's laying out there. Mark Quickle at the time says, "Hey, let me pull it back into place," because he thought it was just jammed. Well, it turns out that it came out of the skin. So I said, "Just tape it up. It's fine. We're good. I got to finish this match." They're like, "No, you can't wrestle anymore." I said, "Oh, hell, I can't." So I pushing the trainers away. Like, I'm ready to wrestle. Go out to the center, shake hands one-handed. And they're like, they wouldn't let me. So they take me to the ER. And then, I kind of had a little quick surgery to put it back in the right place and sew it up. And I was able to wrestle at Midlands that year. But my parents were so mad. Not mad. They're just like, come on. They'd sat there 7 hours to wrestle a minute 30, and then they're in the ER with me. So that was Briggsy. I remember that. He looked at it and he kind of got a little white a little bit when he saw that thing sticking out. So
I think you did last night telling the story too. Okay, so back to after UNI, then you went to Aurelia. Is that correct?
Yep.
For 3 or 4 years there.
2 years at Aurelia. 2
years there, and then of course in Cedar Rapids is Xavier.
Yeah,
and then up to Warburg, and then I landed up at La Crosse.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, so let me go through a couple of the things that you've accomplished besides your within your 19 years there. So then last year, 23-24, you were the NWCA Division III Coach of the Year. You're 7-time WIAC, the Wrestling Wisconsin Athletic Conference, where it is, and coached 13 national champs, 68 All-Americans. You're NWCA national champs. It was in 22. The dual champs. Yeah. and all while raising 4 daughters, 3 of them triplets. How the heck did you do that?
I tell you, Briggsy, here's the best part, KJ. You put good people around you and good things happen. Like that. That is just those results are very humbling, but it's about the people I put around me. I am not the smartest man in the world, but I am smart enough to know you put good people around you and really good things can happen. And so it all started at what I saw when I was in high school at Osage. I mean, Coach Goss and Coach Andrew, 2 of the best coaches ever in the state of Iowa. I saw what they did, and I went to UNI and had amazing coaches there. Then was able to go to Alta Aurelia, a small little town, actually, where I met KJ when he was at BV and got a chance to go over and met Al Baxter. And that's how I got started on D3 wrestling. As Al said, why don't you come over and work out with our upper weight? So I always got to tell this. At Aurelia, I was K through 12 PE, assistant football varsity, head wrestling coach, head junior high track boys, assistant junior high track girls, and I drove school bus.
And you did laundry, I bet too. Yeah.
And I loved it. I thought I was going to be rich, and then I saw my paycheck. Anyway, so then I would go over and help out at BV, and man, I got to coach and be alongside some of those guys, Clint Kudum, and got to see Jay Huff win a national championship and the Schweitzer brothers. And my goodness, man, that list goes on. And that's where it all started. I was like, man, this Division III's kind of got it going on. And I knew Coach Miller, obviously, then had left when I was a sophomore in college and went up north to the Evil Empire and went to Wartburg. And then, obviously, then I reconnected with him for 6 years at Wartburg and then up here for 19.
You know, Dave, when you left UNI, I mean, when you're going through your career at UNI, was coaching something that you had in your sights? Was that something that you were always maybe destined to do?
Absolutely. 7th grade, Craig Van Syke was the middle school PE teacher and assistant football coach. And I just saw him for the first time in about 30 years. I saw him just last month, September, I think, when I was back in Osage. He was back for this reunion thing, this Hall of Fame thing. And he was the reason why, man. I wanted to be a coach. I knew. And so that's why I'd always kind of ask Briggsy questions. I'd always ask Greenlee questions, and all those coaches, Millboy, I'd ask those guys a lot of, they probably got sick of it, how they handled situation, how they handled people. And like, I'd watch them and see how they did. And I'd watch some of the other crazy coaches and what I didn't want to do. And man, just really, like I said earlier, it's about who you put around you. I just observed everybody, but man, I've done that in parenting. I've watched how people parent. I've seen that in relationships with marriages. Like I just love to observe and like, hey, I really like that. Or write it down, or I remember that, or like, I didn't like what they did there, how they treated their athletes. I'm not going to do it. I stole a lot from Don Briggs. I stole a lot from Al Baxter and Jim Miller. You know, my goodness, I've stolen a lot of stuff from a lot of coaches, then put my own little twist and flavor on it too. So, but Briggsy, I did have a full head of hair, and then I had triplets, and then that's what.
You know, it's interesting that you kind of mentioned. You know, I see some of Al Bax. You have this great rapport, and you know, things change over 2 decades, but you still seem to have this great rapport, and to be able to relate to athletes and be able to get the most out of them. Is there a trick to that? Is that something that's just innate for you, or is it something that maybe some trial and error that, you know, you've developed it throughout, you know, your career, starting back at Alta Aurelia and going forward?
That's a great question, KJ. And I think the biggest thing is
why I get paid. That's why I get paid the big bucks.
I just like handing out compliments to you, KJ. I think the biggest thing is like I've had to been willing to change. Like I'm old school Iowa farm boy, and I just know that I'm attracted to guys that work hard. And I don't care if you're the best athlete or not. If you got personality and you care about people and treat them the right way and you work hard, dude, we're going to have a great experience. We're going to have a great relationship. But I've just had to keep changing over and over. And some people go, kids are changing. They're getting soft. They're like, oh, this. Dude, I wanted to change because I think I've gotten better. And I still haven't even reached I don't think my best coaching yet. There's still some mistakes I make or things I say that, oh man, I probably should have kept that to myself, or sometimes I should think it, not say it. But I think, KJ, the biggest thing is making small changes, adapting to who you got. Like, we're mostly Wisconsin, Minnesota guys. We're guys that are outdoorsmen, but we're guys that work hard, come from great families. But also here, it's a little different. Like, you got to have a 24 ACT and a 3.5 to get into UW La Crosse. You're not coming in like some slacker in school or like school second thought. Like, man, you got to take care of school. And I know a lot of other schools, I won't point fingers at them, that I'm joking, but school's not as important. It's just not. Here, man, it's important and it's difficult, but man, those are the guys we're getting. We're getting guys that where academics are very important to them. So I never got into school here. I barely got through Northern Iowa. I wasn't a scholar like Dick, but I had to make sure I did my job. But I think, KJ, to get back to what you had said, I've really just had to keep making changes. And I've gotten lucky because I've had some amazing guys with me, but I've missed on some guys. I've missed some situations, but you're still trying to mold and develop 18 to 22-year-olds. Jack Denholm, the great coach from Ellsworth College, said, Malacek, don't let a bunch of 18, 22-year-olds ruin your day. Only let them brighten your day. I was like, man, that has stuck with me for probably 15, 20 years when Jack told me that one day.
That's awesome.
Well, and you can flip that exactly what you just said to your athletes. And athletes are attracted to personality like you, that's outgoing, that's positive, that reinforces what their hard work and like you mentioned, I put you in the same category. Your charisma with Al Baxter, with Jim Miller, with, I can't really say Don Briggs because I know too much about him. Tim Johnson, those are the kind of guys that influenced me when I was young in the coaching career and that sort of thing. So it's the athletes that are attracted to you and they want to be around you. They want to be in the car that's traveling with you to wherever you're going, or in the bus sitting near you, so they can absorb as much as they can. And that's a huge compliment to you. And you've done a great job, dude.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Briggsy.
Hey, Dave, I want to ask you about a certain experience from a year ago, if I'm remembering everything correctly. Something that I'm not sure if it had happened, if it had happened before last year. It is very rare. You coached a wrestler that competed in the NWCA All-Star Classic, correct? Noah Hurdle?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nolan.
Yep.
Nolan. What was that experience like out at University Park, Pennsylvania, to have one of your wrestlers compete in something that's, a pillar in the, college wrestling schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the crazy thing. Here's a little backstory on that. So we're in the airport in Albany, New York. We just flown out. We're wrestling some duels out there. And I get a phone call from Shane Bennett. And Shane's obviously from Wisconsin, and they're track wrestling the flow now. He said, hey, I think we got this opportunity. Something's coming through that there might be a chance at the All-Star duel. I said, great. Just keep us posted. Let us know. And then you guys know Bob Bowlesby, obviously. His son Matt's one of the higher-ups with Flow Wrestling. And I work with him through Malacek team camp in the summers. We coordinate, go back and forth. I've never met him in person, but we've gone back on emails and some phone calls. He calls me and says, hey, we got a unique opportunity. We need a 57-pounder. Would you guys be interested in wrestling Novak from St. Cloud State? And I knew Steve Costanza would be on board right away. I know Steve and respect him so much, and he's done an amazing job there. And we said, all right, let's do this. So we wrestled Saturday, flew home Sunday, did our laundry, repacked our bags, flew back Monday to State College, and then he wrestled on Tuesday. But what a great experience. We're walking in, and Doug Schwab's there with Parker, and we kind of see them at the gym, say hi to them. There's that UNI connection. We walk through it. Guy says, you guys looking for the wrestling room? And Hurdle goes, yeah, we are. And it's Kyle Snyder. And he goes, hey, it's right over here. And then we get to the door, and Kyle Dake opens it up for Hurdle. And we walk in the room and get working out. And there's Kale over in the corner beating the heck out of some freshman. And that was like one of like 6 guys he beat up on in 2-day span. But it was a great experience. They treat us like Nolan, especially like a rock star. It it was fun for me to see Tony Ursuline from Purdue, who were about the same age, and got to know him. Obviously, Chris Bono was there. I've known Chris, even though he went to Iowa State. All these guys that I've known for a long time that I just don't get to run into as much because, we're all in wrestling season. But we went out and packed house. And I'll tell you a real quick story that my favorite part for me, selfishly, yes, it was being in the corner for hurdle, but the duel's going on, and I pulled a chair up. Security guy goes, "Hey, you want to sit here for a while?" I said, "Yeah, I just want to watch the matches. My guy's not coming up for a while." I said, "Great, sit down." And guy walks by, grabs another chair, and sits next to me. It's Casey Cunningham, and I've met Casey twice, but that was really once at Midlands and when he was at Iowa State. But make a really long story short, we sat there for half hour, 40 minutes. I was just firing questions. He was asking me questions. What we did for Thanksgiving break. What do we do for Christmas training? I mean, I'm sitting there going, dude, why are you asking me questions? Like, I just kept firing them at him, and he was responding. And I mean, whole new level of respect for Casey. I mean, I didn't know him. He didn't know me. We sat and talked for a half hour and said, "Hey, I got to go back. My guy's warming up." And he said, "Great. Best of luck to you." So that was the coolest experience. And then the last cool experience was hurdle wins. We go up in the stands to walk through the backside of Rec Hall there to go watch the rest of the matches. Penn State fans are stopping hurdle and going, "Can I get my picture with you?" And that
really?
and hurdle looks at me like, "You serious?" And they're like, "Yeah, we want you." I mean, it wasn't one or two. I mean, it took us 15 minutes. We didn't probably we just barely saw Parker's match because hurdle was being a celebrity, getting all these autographs and pictures. It was great. It was absolutely great. Yeah. So great experience. First class. It was awesome. And I got to spend a lot of time one-on-one with Hurdle, and it still gives me goosebumps thinking about it. He is an amazing young man because he didn't have great high school credential. He just worked his ass off. He did it. He worked his tail off.
That's and now you have him on staff, like you mentioned. Any other changes to your staff?
Yeah, we had a huge offseason. We added Zach Cook, became our full-time assistant coach. Zach was NCAA Coach of the Year for North Central College. He graduated from here, coached with me for a while, then left and went to North Central College. You guys know North Central in Division III is pretty dang good since he got there, and they trophied twice. And they got 8th this past year, but he was regional coach of the year. I mean, obviously he coached against, I think, probably your son, even Briggsy, when he was at North Central. But we got him back. His wife was an 11-time All-American in track and field here, and we worked on her. And then the kicker was, and God bless her heart, my mom just passed away last week, but I had my mom call Cook, and Cook said, and she put it on him. She put it on and said, "You need to come back to UWL. You can be the next head coach. You can work with Dave. He wants you there." My mom, 82 years old, said, put it on him. And he called me. He goes, "Man, I don't know if that's low or that's the right thing to do." He goes, "But I can't. It's good enough to say no to you, Dave." He goes, "They're sure the hell not going to say no to Marla." So he signed and came to UWL.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Well, before I do that, I want to ask you a little bit. Obviously, you guys are both rooted, in UNI wrestling. So some things have transpired over the last couple of years. The West Gym is no longer there. That's where you competed for the most part. I think I even remember watching you wrestle at West Gym in a double duel against the University of Missouri and Wisconsin Platteville at one time. But the history of West Gym, what are your thoughts about that not being kind of the home of the team, and hopefully a new facility coming soon to replace it? But big memories from West Gym for you?
Absolutely, KJ. It's hard to explain, and I don't know. I'm sure Briggsy feels somewhat the same way. Like, I've been in a lot of buildings. I've been part of a lot of from high schools and high school gyms, hell, I've been in this rest. I've been here for 19 years. There's nothing like West Gym. I mean, I don't know what it was. The wood bleachers, playing basketball before practice started, that is so hot in there, that little balcony up above our wrestling room with the windows, and then seeing those NCAA champs up on the wall and the All-Americans and the fight ladder on the one end, and so many fond memories. And it just, man, it's sad to me. Like I was so disappointed, but like I also know new facilities. That's kind of the name of the game right now, and part of the name of the game. But I'm just telling you, that place had historic. Everybody knew West Gym because wrestling was so big, and the NCAA champions were held there, and how we had the UNI Open there. But it's so disappointing. Rich Powers, I just saw him this on Monday, and he's like, "Hey, I got a brick from West Gym." I'm like, I got memories from West Gym. I love Powers that he has his brick, but to me, like, I just really I love that place. I love competing there against Iowa State. We beat Oklahoma State my freshman year in that gym. This was hopping on a Sunday. Oh, there's so many great memories there. Dislocated my finger there. I mean, I don't know.
And so not the great ones.
Yeah, right.
So I even go back further. Our wrestling room was upstairs in the corner in what I think was a classroom. They basically won there. You got to remember, we were national champions, and there were some incredibly. I'm a freshman, and you got guys like Ken Snyder, Jim Miller, Randy Omvig, Tom Garcia. They were all national champions there, and so so running down the stairs and out, it's kind of goofy now when you think back, but at the time, that we were pumped up. That was just cool. The West Gym, and then the wrestling room expanded to downstairs, much bigger there. But the sad thing for me is there's no permanent workout facility. How do you recruit? When you don't even have a permanent workout facility on campus, when you've got maybe in Iowa, say, who just put in a $25 million or whatever it was facility. So that's the sad part for me.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to put you on the spot, Dave.
Got it. This
might be the toughest question of the whole segment. Rank the Malacek family athletes in order.
Oh, that's cool.
We touched on it earlier. Your triplets, outstanding athletes and stuff. Your wife, you mentioned on the Wall of Fame at Wartburg.
Ooh, okay.
We can start with who's at the lowest.
I'm probably down there. Yeah, I tell you what, most natural athletic ability out of all six of us is Isabella, the junior. She's been on the 4x1, 4x2, 4x4 relays and all medaled at state and the big schools here in Wisconsin. She plays volleyball as well, and then she also got fifth in the state in high jump, and just high jumped a couple times, then ended up getting one of the best heights in the state in the big schools. So most natural athleticism, her. It's tough to beat Cora. She's just a fire. She's actually getting into coaching, and the triplets graduate in May, but she's going to go get her master's once get into coaching, even after I told her not to, but she's going to do that. Then you got to go Keba. I mean, 2-sport athlete at Wartburg, all conference in both, all American. I mean, she had a pretty dang good career. Even that hurts to say about Wartburg. Then probably Lydia, then Amalia, then I'm probably at the bottom. Yeah, absolutely, probably. So, and lowest ACT score out of the whole crew too. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Awesome. They probably won't watch this, but if they did, they'd get a kick out of it.
Okay, so before we send you on your way, we really appreciate you taking the time out with us. We always like to do something fun. Kind of mentioned it last night. I was watching Gladiator, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. You and Briggsy, I asked you guys to come up with your top 5 movies.
Yep.
I'll kind of kick it off in no real order. Actually, my top 5 movies. My number 1 movie, Cool Hand Luke. That is, I think, is one of the cinematic classics of all time. From and I'm not even talking about the failure to communicate line, but when the warden is talking about Lucius Jackson being buck private in the Army for like 8 years, and he goes, what were you doing? And he's like, just passing time. Simple little lines like that throughout the movie makes it a classic.
Okay.
Gladiator, the whole premise and everything. I mean, especially with wrestling, I think there's a crossover in that type of the battles and somebody being so humble and strong at the same time. Pulp Fiction, even though that's there's some different parts to it. That's one of my favorites of all time. There's a movie called All Stars, and I don't know if you've ever seen it before. It's based on like 10U softball. It has Fred Willard in it. Angela Kinsey from The Office is in it. You'll recognize a lot of the faces, but it's literally a dead-on take on what the parents and the whole culture around 10U softball is, and with our daughters, hits home a lot. And then Bull Durham.
Oh, sure.
Bull Durham is one of my absolute favorites. Love baseball, but one of my favorite parts of Bull Durham is when you have Crash Davis, this really grizzled, jaded minor leaguer. He's in the on-deck circle, and the bat boy walks by and says, "Get a hit, Crash." This really upbeat message. And he turns to the little kid and goes, "Shut up, kid." Just stuff like that in the whole movie. So those are my top 5. One of you guys, why don't you give us your top 5 movies?
Go ahead, Briggsy.
Well, that's a tough task. So I kind of broke it down by genres. So I started with sports movies. So I went with, I like The Rookie. I mean, you can go with a whole bunch of different baseball movies. You can go with Vision Quest, whatever. But I like The Rookie. That's a fun one to watch. And a lot of these are based on family, watching with the kids too. And then I'm a Western guy, so Outlaw Josie Wales was my next one. And lots of and then family, the family movie, the family category. I love Finding Nemo. That's just a fun. Sorry. And then in the comedy genre, I tossed between Kicking and Screaming and the other guys, because Kyle and I quote both of those movies a lot. I mean, like coffee's the lifeblood that fuels the dreams of champions. That's Dick's line. And I take a vitamin every day. It's called steak. Kyle and I back and forth to that, or I'm a peacock. You gotta let me fly. With the other guys, and then that whole Don Beeman, Mr. Don Beeman, the guy that's up on the ledge that's gonna jump off, and that whole is very fun. And the other guys. But my all-time favorite movie is I've got to go way, way, way back. This one was a drama, and it just never left me. I've always thought of it as One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So, that was a classic and won all sorts of awards. And it was the thing that got me was Nurse Ratched. I wanted to strangle her also. And then I saw her get her Academy Award, and she takes a moment and says, I'm like, I'm still, not liking her at the Academy Awards. And she goes, I want to take a message or send a message or say a message to my parents. And she starts signing. Both of her parents are deaf. And I'm like, you're awesome. So she, what a neat thing that was. So that's what that movie sticks with me.
Yeah.
What's now?
my top 5, you guys, I didn't have to think very long about this. Pretty solid. I make these guys. I have all these, and we watch them on our first bus trips. They all bring their movies. I'm like, no, you're watching these. These are the ones that we're going to watch. Coming in at number 5 is Last of the Mohicans. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that one. Man, I'd go to war. I'd go to battle, and no matter what you do, stay alive. I will find you type kind of stuff. Last of the Mohicans. Number 4, Shawshank Redemption. How can you not love that movie? If I ever got thrown in prison, I'm breaking out. Don't hope it ever happens, but that's where I'm at. Coming at number 3, an all-time classic, The Blues Brothers. How can you not love Jake and Elwood Blues with The Blues Brothers? The soundtrack, still play that cassette when I was in high school, still have it on DVD or CDs now and listen to it on my iMusic. Coming in number 2, it's kind of a tie. They're both comedies, whether it's Airplane or Naked Gun. I don't know if you guys have seen either one of those, but 2 of the classics. And number 1, coming in at the all-time greatest movie, which we're going to watch on the way to Minneapolis on Friday as we go up to the Augsburg Open, Blazing Saddles. Everyone has Blazing Saddles. Nice. These guys get seeing those movies and are like, oh, my God, what did we get into with Malacek? Some of the freshmen are like, oh, boy. But, yeah, those are my top 5.
That's a good list. That's a good list.
Hey, Coach, I love your Mondays with Malacek, but I also want to have you send a message to your team. I love that your Thanksgiving tribute, you line them up and everyone does a really one or two thank yous. Tell them that I like that they thank their family and their teammates, but some of those offbeat ones I really love.
You never know. Hey, we don't want to edit this, Briggsy. I don't want to go back and have to edit this. So let's make sure we do a good job. So yeah, we started that, 19 years ago. It was right before Thanksgiving. I said, hey, let's get in front of the camera and send this out to our families and put it on social media. And then I talk about it at camp, and I see other programs doing it as well now too. So it's kind of cool that as wrestlers, we need to make sure we thank our family and our support staff and everybody that helps us.
Yeah, I like those offbeat ones though.
Awesome. Well, hey, Dave, I from the time that I met you in Storm Lake and at BV, I've had a ton of respect for you. Obviously, you have become a staple in the wrestling world. We appreciate you coming on the Pinning Combination and being our first interview of the 2024-2025 season. There's the Briggsy.
Going right before. That's right. Let's go.
So, man, appreciate you so much. Congratulations on all that you've done up there at Wisconsin Lacrosse. Good luck for the upcoming season. Wisconsin Lacrosse has been a great host for the NCAA championships. You got another one coming up in the next cycle as well. But thank you very much, and good luck with the season coming up.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate both you guys and respect you guys. I've known you for so long, and it's just awesome to get back and be the first one on the Pinning Combo podcast. I was like, hey, this is going to be sweet. So hopefully at some time you ask me to come back on, we can tell some more stories.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Coach.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, again, I'd like to thank Dave Malecek for coming on board. I mean, I tell you what, when it comes to actual people in wrestling, I don't know if they come much better than Dave Malecek. And obviously the success that he's had from the high school level to his spot, Wisconsin Lacrosse, the success really shows that, really proves that point. Great dude. You can just feel the energy kind of coming off him, right? When he gets excited, it's almost palpable.
Yep. That's the kind of guy he is, and that's what makes him a great coach. And he was at Xavier for 2 years, I think he said 2 years. And then in those 2 years, he had 10 state medalists and a state champion. I'm glad he left.
Yeah, Mike Sheedak, who actually went up to UNI to wrestle as well. So, you notice we did not talk about a certain competition back at BV where I think we went the first to 10 takedowns at the time. And then also I had a challenge of trying to turn him because Dave actually, I think he won like one of the last chance freestyle meets and made it to Olympic trials when he was still coaching at Alta Aurelia back in the mid 90s. I think he might have went out west and was still competing in freestyle at the time. And let's just say those little competitions did not work out real well for me. And we'll leave it at that. One of the reasons we didn't bring it up while he was with us. But let's this is our first one. There's just only a few things kind of going on. As you mentioned, girls wrestling has not started competition yet. They've only been practicing. Boys still a week away from their first practice. Colleges haven't really gotten full steam ahead yet, but Iowa, we'll talk a little bit about Iowa here in their first couple duels. They're 2-0. They went out to Oregon State and won 8 matches out there on November 2nd, won 30-7. And then they followed up here this last weekend, 32-9 against Stanford. Won 7 matches there. Suffered a couple upsets there. The transfers have been really impressive so far. Kyle Parko, dominant in his win against Stanford. Stephen Buchanan opened against Trey Munoz and got a big win. Came back late. That one against Oregon State. And then got a tech fall to match Parko. In the Stanford duel against the decent competitor, Nick Stemet. And then Ja'Cory Teamer with a major decision against Stanford. But on the other side of things, Drake Ayala lost to Stanford at his weight, 15-10 against Tyler Knox, who was a ranked wrestler. And then Nelson Brands fell to Lorenzo Norman, 4-1 at 174. What are your early takeaways from the Hawkeye, the early part of the Hawkeye season?
Oh, a lot of things. So bear with me here. Those 3 transfers, Parko, Teamer, and Buchanan, bring 11 All-American titles or whatever into the room. So there was a lot of snatching, I guess. I don't know what the word is that you call it. That sounds kind of bad, but capturing, I guess, of kids that are in the that were in transfer portal. Thank you. Geez, transfer portal. But you got, and those, I think all 3 of them have been to multiple schools. So they didn't just come from one school. So they've transferred at least 3 times now.
I think Teamer's always been at Arizona State. Parker was at Fresno State, and then they shut that down a second time, and that's when he went to Arizona State. Buchanan started at Wyoming, then went to Oklahoma. I think he was only at Oklahoma for a season, and then became a Hawkeye. So, multiple stops for a couple of those guys.
Right, and what's fun about those guys? I'll speak about those guys. They bring it. They get out there and go after it. It appears so. That's the early takeaway of me. Then you add Gabe Arnold and Ben Keeter, the freshmen that are in the lineup now. Those guys like to wrestle as well. It's going to be a fun, exciting Iowa team to watch. They're not going to be, hopefully they're not going to be, keep it low scoring. We've seen that in the last 2-3 years where we were always saying, I bet the coaches wish they would open up a little bit. I think this team's going to be that team that opens up. So we'll see there. It's going to be fun. I'm going to say this about Arnold, and this is with the national champion up at UNI wrestling another national champion that's bumped up at the All-Star meet this weekend. I think Arnold, don't sleep on him at all, especially if you're Parker Kikaisen, in the same state here when you get a chance to battle with him. Because I think Arnold could battle maybe for a championship this year. So, that's saying a ton with those 2 things.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But he's
he's been, I know it's kind of a punchline sometimes about his height at 184, but I mean, he's so explosive, and it's kind of rewatching some of his finishes in his last two matches. And I mean, his transition from explosive shot to finish, there's hardly a gap between any of those. It's just fluid. It's just, it's one right into the other. And the one thing, maybe it was, won't be the case against maybe better wrestlers, but there are some times where his penetration, he didn't need to finish because, he was so far, he was almost past the wrestler just with his penetration, and all he had to do was just kind of come through the leg or come behind. But and that super duck and the Stanford match, that was one of those kind of moves.
And then I think if you add, obviously Caliendo, he puts points on the board too, even if he's way behind. And then but then I think if Kennedy ends up cracking the lineup, he's another guy that likes to put points on the board. So it's gonna be a fun season with Iowa. I'm looking forward to it.
I think so. And then Iowa, they head to Bellarmine. I called it Bellarmine, and I was corrected by Ned Shuck, the head coach at Bellarmine. Interesting thing about Bellarmine, coached by former Hawkeye Ned Shuck. He was there from 2000 to 2004. He's another guy. He's climbed the ranks. Former Hawkeye, coached a high school in Illinois for a few years. Then he became an assistant at Augsburg for a couple seasons. Became the head coach at Heidelberg. Was an assistant at Wisconsin Whitewater after Heidelberg. When he was at Whitewater, he talked about kind of the influence. He learned some things from Ben Peterson, who was up in Wisconsin, former Iowa State, an Olympic champ, right? Or was he
champ and silver medalist?
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then he became an assistant at Army, and then he became a head coach at Bellarmine, who now they're through their probationary period, and this is the first year that they're eligible for the postseason in NCAA Division I. So they're heading there Friday. It sounds like it's going to be a huge production. Coach Gable is going to be there to do a little bit of a pre-duel talk or speech. You mentioned Patrick Kennedy. He's listed in the probable lineup with Nelson Brands at 174, so we might be able to see PK for the first time this season. Either or at 125, that's going to be a question mark for Iowa kind of going forward, but Cale Peterson down to weight. Him and Joey Cruz are listed both at 125. The one interesting thing from this duel that I think, if it happens, it would be kind of neat. Former Iowa City West wrestler Grant Odell is the one is listed at 174 for Bellarmine. You could see a battle of Iowa City West wrestlers. If Nelson Brands gets the call at 174, Grant Odell for Bellarmine might be going head to head. And of course, this is after we watched Iowa City West's Hunter Garvin come through the state last week, getting a win at Iowa State, and then wrestling Caliendo last Saturday. So kind of interesting there with some former Iowa City West wrestlers facing Iowa.
Yeah, it's early in the season. Coach is going to be, inserting different people into different slots and try and figure out what the lineup is, and rightly so. I mean, I'm glad to see Nelson Brands back that last year, but he's going to have to battle to keep a spot or to earn a spot on the team, and who knows if Arnold will even stay at 84, up down to 74, and where he might even be a bigger title threat.
So well, and I think that's something we're going to have to monitor throughout the season that 74-84. You've got Angelo Ferrari coming in, number one ranked recruit out of the 2024 class, pound for pound. He's somebody listed at 84. Depending on how things go, you've got Patrick Kennedy coming off a U23 performance at the World Championships. You've got Nelson Brands, an All-American that's back. You've got Gabe Arnold that, could be at either weight. So what you're seeing right now may not be what you see in January or even March. So certainly need to keep an eye on that as the season goes along.
Right, and it's nice to have that depth. And I saw a little snippet. I'm sorry I can't give credit. I don't remember who it was that posted it, but that Kennedy was, had the opportunity, or the opportunity was there to maybe go into the portal and transfer somewhere and earn some money or whatever. And he says no, he is loyal to Iowa. This is where home is, and if he needs to put on his work boots or whatever and be done with wrestling, this is where he wanted to be done with it. He didn't want to go somewhere for the money and not be happy. So I like that attitude, boy. I like it a lot in this day and age. People are chasing money. So.
Yeah, for sure. And that was yesterday during their wrestling media availability, and that's what I've always liked about Patrick Kennedy. Very direct, straightforward, and said, I'm, if I finish my time here and just have to go put on my work boots for the rest of my life. I grew up, I didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, so be it. This is where this is where his home is pretty much. And yeah, it's something that has changed a lot, not just wrestling, all athletics, right? Mm-hmm. At the college level. So when people are chasing things, usually even if you do catch up to what you're chasing, it's not as fulfilling as stuff that's kind of internally driven, right? And right. Patrick Kennedy certainly internally driven about being a Hawkeye. So that is awesome. I agree with you 100%.
And I'll tack on one other person, since we're talking about this topic. Parker Kikaisen could have probably got maybe six figures if he'd have transferred somewhere. I don't know what the going rate is anymore for a national champ, but he could have got, I'm sure, quite a bit of money and stayed loyal to UNI and to his coaching staff. So he also deserves huge kudos.
Yep. And we'll mention, we'll transition to UNI now. They had their media day on Monday, and that was something that seemed to be kind of a theme with what was talked about throughout the day. UNI brings back all but 2 wrestlers from last year's squad. You're talking about people transferring and maybe wanting to go somewhere, so they were starters instead of seeing the greater good of the team. The 2 people that left graduated. So they're pretty much everybody that's eligible came back. They didn't lose anybody to transfers or anything like that. Everybody's bought in. And you mentioned Kikaisen and that and staying and maybe not chasing. I'm sure there are people that were hinting, hey, if you went here or this place could use you or whatever. And this is where he is. And he talked about just how special the relationship is with the coaches there, that he knows that they're invested in not just me as a wrestler, but as a person. And if I have girlfriend problems or life problems, or if my car breaks down, I can call one of them and they're going to be right there for me. And that holds a lot of water when people are focused on the right things. And I think you see that. And, Schwab talked about how, there's a loyalty and there's a camaraderie among the team that they're, it's cliche to say, but they're bought in and they want to be there because they want to be there. Cale Happel talked about it as well, that, we pull for each other. This is a really tight knit group, and and we're getting back what we put into it pretty much, and what they've been through over the last years that strengthens the bond when they're the ones painting the walls and they're the ones,
moving the mats
and stuff in the facility that's off campus with what they've dealt with, losing the West Gym. So that really builds or kind of fortifies that loyalty because they have sweat equity. I think I put that in my story. They have sweat equity into that program. Why would you leave after you've put your heart and soul into something like that? And I think that's the perspective a lot of those guys have.
Yep, and I'm glad to hear that. That's really cool. I'm gonna encompass or include all three of our state schools. Our wrestling in college, our college men's wrestling is going to be really, really good this year. UNI has they had 8 national qualifiers, 3 medalists was it last year? Anyway, I don't recall, but a real solid team, like you said. Only 2 that have graduated, and so UNI, we know Iowa's gonna be tough. We just talked about their lineup. Iowa State, when they get there, I don't know where they were at. There were so many out of the lineup. I'm sure injuries and everything else, but when they get put their team together, they're going to be tough as nails as well. So it's going to be fun in the state of Iowa for sure.
Oh, for sure, and we're going to have some representation. Iowa State, not the lineup you're going to see from them later on for sure when they lost to Stanford in the opener, but we're going to see some Iowa guys wrestling this weekend. Parker Kakaisen, obviously the big one, going out to the All-Star Classic. Iowa State's Evan Frost, I believe, is also participating. Bastida was going to, but he's pulled out because of injury. But the big one, Kakaisen and Starochi, a 4-time national champ, and Penn State's Carter Starochi. Penn State's hosting the NWCA All-Star Classic. Kakaisen coming off 184-pound national title. He's a 2-time finalist. Kakaisen's never finished lower than 3rd at the national tournament. One of the biggest gas tanks and most offensive wrestlers you're going to watch this season. And I think it was Doug Schwab that brought it up that I don't know if we've seen a match like this where both wrestlers are voluntarily stepping on the mat. He talked about maybe in an open tournament or, at Cliff Keen early in the season, but we haven't seen something like this where both of them are openly going, hey, I'm good. Let's go. Yep. Step into the plate.
Yeah. I'm excited. I don't even know what to say. It's crazy. I guess we should mention, I'm not sure Crosse is going to wrestle this weekend. He was out of the lineup, so I'm not sure I think our only Iowa connection would be Parker.
Okay.
No, Bastida was also supposed to be in it, but he also got hurt. So Crosse. So Iowa State had Frost, Terrakina, who's still listed on their roster. He wasn't. I don't know what that means, but he didn't wrestle. Swiderski, Johnson, Chittum, Gayton or Gaitan, and Bastida were all out of the lineup. So they took a hit when they lost to their duel, but with that many out of the lineup, it's not a surprise. I think they're ranked top 10. I think in most rankings, aren't they? Iowa State, yeah. maybe even higher. So we'll see. Now, let's see. I take that back. The All-Star connection. Hunter Garvin is wrestling Peyton Hall. Levi Haynes is wrestling Cade DeVos. So we have those two.
Oh yes, that's right.
DeVos from South Dakota State, but Southeast Boat, and then of course the feature match is Starochi and Kakaisen. So it's going to be fun.
Definitely. I just want to backtrack really quick with you and I. You mentioned I think they were 14th last year, which is close to one of their best finishes under Schwab in the last 15 years that he's been there. You've got we mentioned Kakaisen, Lance Runyon. He's back, but he's made the jump all the way to heavyweight, which is that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But the Panthers have Trevor Volker back, or Wyatt Volker back at 197. Corey Land was injured last year, but he's back. He's at 133, battling out with Julian Farber. Both of those guys wrestled overseas at the U20 and U23 World Championships this last year. You've got Colin Real Buto at 149. He took an Olympic red shirt last year and is coming off injury, but expect him to be back at 149. We mentioned Happel. Jared Sima was a national qualifier. Jack Thompson at 165. And not to mention Ryder Downey at 157. He was a great story last year, finished really strong. So, like you mentioned, Coach, state of Iowa is going to be represented really well on the D1 level. And think the sky's the limit for the Panthers this season.
Right. And then last I looked, Happel and Downey were ranked 6th. So very high rankings there. All of them, with the exception of Runyon that you mentioned, are ranked somewhere in the top 30, I think. Most of them in the top 20, inside the top 20. And so I'm guessing Runyon's jumping to heavyweight, 1, because he can, and 2, because maybe he can't beat Kakaisen at 84 or Volker at 97. So that's a good problem to have, and good for him for getting out there and finding a spot for himself. So.
Yep. Schwab said that, he dealt with a lot of injuries, and he thought maybe some of that was because he was cutting down to 74. Sometimes, you can cut can leave you a little vulnerable for things like that, but said he's at 220, 225 right now. So he's adapting and kind of getting used to wrestling heavyweights and gaining more confidence as they go along. So, that certainly is a spot that they need to fill, and
KJ, as a heavyweight, I want to know, can you cradle heavyweights?
I couldn't.
Cradle, doesn't he?
I couldn't, but if your wingspan is long enough, you certainly can. There have been heavyweights that have splayed before. So I think if there's anybody that could, it's probably Runyon, with the way that he used to be able to hit that. But yeah, the bigger bodies are a little harder to fold, right?
Now that I think about it, 2 of the best cradlers were the Greenleys at heavyweight.
Okay.
So, yeah, there
no question there.
I didn't, and at the same school, you and I. Oh.
Well, since we had Coach Malacek on, and I know just kind of in the infancy of the college season, what do you see? He talked about his competitions coming up, but what do you have for us as far as the D3?
Division 3. So tonight, is wrestling Central, and that's in Cedar Rapids here at Coak Arena. Simpson's at the Evil Empire, and then Thursday Cornell is at University of Platteville. That's at 7 p.m. And then Friday they travel to Indianola to wrestle Simpson, so they have back-to-back meets. Loris is at La Crosse, and that's on Friday. And then Friday the Evil Empire wrestles Nebraska Wesleyan. And then Lutheran is at the Augie Invitational. Upper Iowa has no duels scheduled yet, but they are going up to the Augie Invitational as well. And I wanted to mention this before we signed off, and that is National Wrestling Hall of Fame inductee. It's a distinguished member. Terry Steiner is going in this year. He's only the 18th distinguished member from the University of Iowa. I should say not only, but the 18. I mean, you think of Iowa's history, you'd think there'd be more, but that's still quite a bunch. 18. He's the national women's coach since 2002. He's coached 6 Olympic champions. He's coached in 6 Olympics, and he's had 4 champions, 3 silver medalists, and 6 bronze medalists. He's had 16 world champs, 17 silvers, and 29 bronze at that level. So, yeah, there's the guy that's very deserving, Terry Steiner.
For sure. Very a great leader in women's wrestling, great ambassador for the sport. And the U.S. has really thrived with him kind of leading the way there with USA Wrestling. So well-deserved as well. Before we sign off, you mentioned women's wrestling. Girls wrestling has started here in the state of Iowa. I'm going to take a moment for a little personal note. So, when I first had kids, I was a little thankful that I didn't have boys, because at the time, girls wrestling wasn't really kind of going, and I just knew if I had a son, I probably would be one of those overzealous, overbearing parents that pushed too hard, demanded too much, because of my history with wrestling, my family, with my brother, myself, nephews, stuff like that. So I was kind of relieved. Then when girls wrestling came around, I kind of always thought, what if the girls were interested? They never really showed much interest other than watching with me. I can say now that after a life of playing basketball since she was in kindergarten, my youngest daughter, Katie, has decided to go out for wrestling. Heck of a competitor on the softball diamond, basketball court, whatever she does. I was very touched to see how much she has enjoyed practice in learning the sport of wrestling. Some of the things that she's come home to talk about, not even stuff on the mat, but things that she's learned, hearing from coaches, the intangibles that she's demonstrating on a daily basis that, Briggsy, from your experience as a wrestler, as a coach, even as an official, my experience covering the sport and being a wrestler myself, that there are certain life lessons that only come from wrestling. I'll argue that with anybody from any other sport. There are certain intrinsic values from wrestling that you can only get from wrestling. And to see that starting to kind of blossom and bud in her. And it's not easy to just drop what you've done your entire life and decide to take on something new, especially wrestling. But she's part of a large group of girls across the state that have decided to give this a try. And I'm very, very proud of her. Love the fact now, even though at one time in my life I was, didn't want her to be a part of wrestling or didn't want a kid to be a part of wrestling. I am so freaking thrilled to see her be a part and compete this winter on the wrestling mat. I just want to say, Katie, very proud of you, regardless how this winter goes.
And I'll just say this, follow it up with, she is one tough nut. She's a catcher, a very good catcher on the softball team. You know what catchers are. They're gritty. They don't mind getting dirty. They don't mind getting banged around. And so she is going to do well. First year, only year she'll probably wrestle ever. And so it's going to be fun. And she's got a good leader. Henry Reichs, the coach of Xavier, is a good man. He's going to have a good matchup there. So, and the rest of the staff. But I'm glad to hear that. That's incredible. That's really nice. Good job, Katie.
So really, really cool.
And now, Adam, I tell you need to be quiet in the stands too.
Yes.
No, I'm already trying to pick out somewhere in the rafters to watch from, and and just soak it in. like you said, it's the one and only season. So just sit back and enjoy it, regardless of what happens. Because super proud that she's doing it and something we've gotten to share together. So it's been cool here, and the competition starts next week. So
one thing I did to help myself not shout and try, I videotaped all of Kyle's matches in college, of course, not in high school, but in college. And so I knew that if I yelled something, it was going to be on there permanently forever. So I had to be quiet.
Yep, you had to censor yourself there, I'm sure.
Kind of muzzled myself.
Well, any parting words? I know you've got some family playing football today with the semifinals starting.
Right. Yep, he's a kicker, sophomore kicker for Gladbrook Rhinebeck, and I'm going to go up and watch him. So that'll be fun.
Yeah,
I've not been to the semifinals before.
So. Yeah, they had a big marquee quarterfinal win. So good luck to the Rebels up at the Unidome. Any parting words or comments as far as wrestling goes?
Like I said before, I'm so excited. This is going to be fun. College is a long season, so what happens now, it's a long ways from Mark. So we'll see where everything lands up. But man, what about that All-Star meet? Go Parker.
For sure. That'll be this Saturday. Just want to thank you guys for joining us again. It's going to be another fun season. For Dick Briggs, for Dave Malecek joining us from Crosse, Wisconsin today in our first interview, for our producer, Nathan Ford. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Let's keep wrestling on the move.